10 potential Harry Potter TV shows. These are just ideas I came up with on my own and just things that I thought would be really interesting or just things that I've always wanted to see more of or things I think would really help the fandom out and help them really understand things that never really made sense to them. So I have a list on this piece of paper with my terrible handwriting on it. And I'm going to go over each of my 10 ideas. Some of these might be sort of similar, and I'll explain what could make them each very interesting. And some of them are kind of based on theories, which is so much fun, and I just want to go over all of them. Okay, so the first one is one of my favorite of them because my favorite character is heavily involved in this. My favorite character, as you probably all know, is Sirius Black, and I think just having Sirius and all of the Marauders, like getting to be with them in their school days, would be a phenomenal TV show. I think it would be highly popular, and for book fans, I think it would be really interesting to watch as we would get to see Remus at the full moon because I think that if they were to do this TV show, I think they would have to have Lupin be it like to be kind of Lupin as the main character just because Lupin is like would be really cool to see like turning into a werewolf and him trying to hide this from his friends every month and them to find out and then them to work on the Polyjuice potion, not the Polyjuice potion. Sorry guys, to kind of just like work out how to become an animagi would just be so interesting and it would be so fun to watch as their friendship grows and to see Pettigrew um secretly like being involved in it, like secretly betraying them, and we could just see signs throughout this show. And I think it would just be a very enjoyable thing. And there's not a whole lot that they have to keep canon. And I just think it'd be so fun. And to see Snape also in love with Lily would be another thing I'd love to see, and just so much. Another way they could do this, though, instead of it just being in Lupin's point of view, is kind of having it sort of in other characters' point of views on different episodes. So, like, maybe like we kind of get to see more of like Snape's life and maybe Lupin's in another episode and maybe a little bit of Sirius. I don't think we need much of James though. I think it would be kind of cool for just for Harry though for that purpose. But other than that, I just think having Lupin and Snape's point of views would be highly important to the show, and to have the Marauders have their own TV show would be so much fun and so amazing. And the Marauders are one of my favorite things about the Harry Potter series. They all just make me really happy, except for Wormtail, which I don't like to think of him as a Marauder. I like to think of like Lily as their other one, even though she's not Animagi, but and it's not Animagus, if you're wondering. It's Animagi, according to Rowling. Though I don't know if I should trust everything Rowling says, but with this one, I'll count it. So yeah, I think the Marauders would just give us a lot of just cool things to learn about and just see this show and or the Wizarding World in a whole new light and all that. So the next one is kind of also something I've always loved, and this one's an horror crime show. I think it would be so interesting to to be like this detective show where there's like a Death Eater, like let's say that murdered someone. They have to find out who murdered them, and I think this could be done kind of like the show Perry Mason. If you don't know what Perry Mason is, it's like this older show. It came out like the 50s through like the 90s, and it's this really amazing show. I love to watch it, and it's just like a detective. They have to find out who it is, and there's clues that are kind of making you think it's somebody else, and it's really hard to decide who it is. And I think if they went with this in the Wizarding World, it would be very interesting, especially with like all the magic and just all those kind of things that they can do with it. And some of those are my like, just I love it. I love the thought of it, and I love Perry Mason, and I think just having a like almost like a Perry Mason Wizarding World type thing would be so cool. And if I was in the Wizarding World, I'd love to be an Auror. I've always loved Aurors with the passion, though I don't like cops in real life, so it's kind of a weird thing. And not all cops, but the ones that don't do their job right. So the next one. This one I'm sure you would expect people to think of. And this is just like a Harry Potter remake. And there's one that'll be similar to this, but slightly different and a little bit more interesting. But I think having a Harry Potter remake is very essential for a lot of people in their dreams because the movies just left out so much and they just took away so much of the magic. And I just would love to see certain things that were cut out. And I just could kind of wish that we could have had that. And um, I don't think you guys really know this about me, but I'm not a big fan of Hermione. She's always just kind of been a bit like dull to me. She's never been my favorite character in the series, and I just wish that they would kind of like they kind of try to make her this amazing witch in the movies when they really just took they replaced her with Jenny, sort of, and they kind of just swapped them around a bit, and it just kind of ruined it for me. I just don't like that about the movies, and the screenwriter, like the one that writes all the dialogue and everything, loved Hermione so much, and what's ironic, not ironic, but just seems so like I don't know, like while not surprising, is that he gave some of Ron's best lines to Hermione. And so Ron just seems like this stupid character, and he's not. He's one of my favorites. He's my third favorite character in the series. So them to just bash on him like he's just this annoying character, it just drives me nuts. They use him more for comic relief, and that's not what Ron is always for. There are a lot of moments when Ron is the comic relief, but that's not all his character is to me, and I just wish they would do this. And there's so many cool things that they took out, especially in Goblet of Fire, and I really want them to make a remake for this reason. The only problem is the casting would be impossible to find just as an amazing cast as they found last time. Sure, there were a few like decisions, but I think it would be kind of difficult to leave the old cast behind, and I think that's why I wouldn't want them to, but maybe they could find a even better cast, which I doubt, okay? But I would love to see what they can do. Like that's why the remake isn't my top option for them to do for like Harry Potter, but I think if they did something more exciting, it would work. But a remake is definitely one of those things that I've always wanted to see because they just took so much out, and I would love to see something a little bit more entertaining. Okay? So, next on my list is one that a lot of people have been a lot more interested in than me. And this is the Hogwarts Founders. Okay, a lot of people really want a Hogwarts like a Founders type of show, and this is great and all, but it's just it. I feel like there's not much to go by, and sure that gives them a lot of free room, but I don't know if that's something they can use a whole lot of time for, and I don't know if there's a whole lot they can do with it. As much as I like to think there is, I really don't. The only thing I would love about this is we would get to see more Hufflepuff. Because I feel like Hufflepuff is just, we don't really know anything about it. We don't see their common room ones or Ravenclaws, though we were supposed to, but, didn't get that either. Anyway, the disrespect for Ravenclaws is another reason why they need to do something with Harry Potter so they can fix that. But anyway, I just feel like the Hogwarts Founders could do something a little bit different than what we've seen before, but it's not something I'm too excited for. But if they do it, I'll definitely want to go and see it. Maybe I'll like it a lot more when it comes out. Okay, so this next one I think a lot of people would find interesting. So I was thought of this, and it was like Voldemort when he is in school and when he's trying to find his Horcruxes. So I put Tom Riddle's school years and Horcrux journey listed on the paper, and I think this would work because like Voldemort is just so like it would be fun to watch him as he is able to do it, and with the movies coming out and everything, it would be so interesting to just like watch as those items were being made Horcruxes, and it would just be so fun to watch. Sure, we wouldn't get like Ralph and all those other actors that played Voldemort, but I think it would just be so interesting to watch, and I would love to see it. And I've never been a big fan of the flashbacks, but I think watching it on screen would be a lot more entertaining for me and everything like that. So I think just Tom Riddle, like school year time, would be kind of interesting because it's the main character is actually a villain rather than the hero. So we're getting mad at the hero, or we're kind of interested to see what happens next, kind of thing. This one's kind of silly, but I thought it would be kind of an interesting thing. And this is the Wizarding World during COVID. I was thinking about this during COVID. I was like, what would the Wizarding World be doing? And I just think it would be so interesting to like know what their precautions were. Like, were they able to find a cure? Like, how like did the like does it infect wizards or are they immune to it? Like, how does this work? And I think it would just be really interesting to see like how they were doing in the pandemic. It's just something I've always just thought about, and it would be just so fun to like see how wizards take this. Would they be wearing masks in Hogwarts? That would be so funny. But I think it would just be really interesting, and like each episode they could just be like showing how it's affecting certain places. Like maybe one episode it's like the Ministry, and the next one's like Hogwarts and Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade and just all these places, and it would just be so fun. And it kind of came to my mind, but the Wizarding World during COVID is one of those that it just makes me kind of laugh and think about. This one's sort of like Tom Riddle, but instead it's with Dumbledore. I would love to see how Dumbledore isn't perfect, and I love to see that Dumbledore isn't just this perfect guy everyone thinks he is. I would love to see how ambitious he was and everything. I just think it would be something really fascinating, especially with the Fantastic Beasts movies coming out. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I personally like them more than the Harry Potter movies, just because they don't have a book that they're supposed to be based off of. And I love Newt; he's such a fantastic character, and Jacob. Oh my gosh, I love Jacob. He is so freaking funny. And so I just think it would be so interesting to like kind of get to see more of that. Whether this is kind of like, but if they might bring a lot more into Dumbledore's younger years during the Fantastic Beasts movies, so maybe it wouldn't be essential, but it would just be, I don't know, something I thought about. Anyway, oh my gosh, I dropped my pen. Okay, so when I was saying theories, this is the one that is based on a theory, but I think it would be really interesting. So there's these YouTubers called the Super Carlin Brothers, and they are phenomenal YouTubers. They are absolutely just funny, and you constantly just like want to watch their videos because they're really smart and they always know how to like put the Wizarding World mixed in with their own theories or almost like fan fictions or what if scenarios. It's just so interesting. So they have one called Dumbledore's Big Plan, and basically they think like in each book, Dumbledore was pulling like these strings, and he was having this plan to secretly like test Harry every single year. And I honestly think it's true, and I think just like having Dumbledore's Big Plan would be very similar to a Harry Potter remake, but it would be a lot more interesting. So it's like we get to watch as Dumbledore is pulling these strings, and we get to watch as Dumbledore does it, and we get to watch those classical moments in Harry Potter, but with this Dumbledore twist. I think it would just be so entertaining, and it'd be something new. And sure, we would have a new Dumbledore, but I think it would be really interesting, and we wouldn't have a screaming Dumbledore being like, "Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" Anyway, so next is Snape behind the scenes. So this one's quite similar to the Dumbledore one, but more with Snape and how he was protecting Harry the whole time. I think it would just be really interesting to like watch Snape and watch as Snape was actually being on Dumbledore's side and actually being like the spy. I think it would just be such an interesting thing just watching Snape doing all this and everything like that. So the next one is actually the last one, and this is something I don't know a whole lot about, but I feel like that's why it could be very useful, just because I think a lot more fans know more about it, but I don't. And I think it would just be really cool to learn about this. So it's the Goblin Rebellion, and this is like the war with like the goblins and stuff, and I think it would just be really cool to kind of learn about it and to like watch this. I think it's always just like been more like wizards and wizards, but what if we kind of got to see more about like how the goblins hate the wizards? Because the goblins really do not like wizards. They just don't. And so I think just getting to like see that would be phenomenal. And like the goblins are like, they like, we see throughout the books that they don't like the wizards, and they think that they've done all this horrible stuff to them. But it would be kind of just interesting to see why they hate them so much. And we know Griphook, especially, like, when Harry had the sword, he was like, he thought that the sword really belonged to him because he's a goblin. And so, like, it would be interesting to, like, see why goblins hate humans so much and, well, wizards so much. And it's always just kind of made me curious, like, why? And maybe they could even add in, like, other creatures, like house elves and things like that. Maybe just more like a whole, like, almost like the racism in the wizarding world. Not necessarily racism, but like, like the segregation to the muggle borns and the house elves and things like that. Like why they're seen less. I think it would just be really cool, and I don't know. But that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was so much fun to make. It was kind of fun. I was actually coming up with these in school, but I thought I would share them. I just got home from school actually, and these was just so much fun. Like just thinking about it, and like it was hard to come up with some of them, so that's why some of them were not as exciting as other ones. But I think my favorite one is the Marauders, just because I've always loved to know more about them, and Sirius Black is my favorite character, and everything like that. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you all. Bye.